When did someone challenge you at something you were an expert at? Not an expert, but I knew just enough to make somebody else look stupid, if that counts. Had a guy at a bar try to claim that there were literally no female professional artists prior to the 20th century. I had just finished a year-long art thesis paper that discussed how female artists were quote-unquote written out of history by male counterparts or art historians going all the way back to the Italian Renaissance. It was like one of those moments you think about in the shower later on in the day, but it actually happened to me in real life, and it was fantastic. My friends and I went to some speakeasy type bar that had lounge seating, and you were kind of close to other groups of people as well based on the layout. Our group had a guy and a girl near to us, and we ended up merging sections to chat. The guy in question was there on a first date with a girl who happened to be a couple of years behind me in school at the same university. He was just super off in general and then somehow got into talking about his art. He kept going on and on about how he was a renowned local sculptor, blah, blah, blah. So I asked him first if he knew of a few other sculptors and artists in the area who happened to be professors or colleagues of mine. And of course, he starts going on about, oh, they're pretty good, but like, I'm better. And I'm like, oh, weird, because a female professor of mine who is an international artist is pretty damn good. That's when this chud launches into his spiel about how female artists should just be appreciative about the opportunity to make art today because, there weren't any female artists before the 20th century. So I asked, you haven't heard of Edmonia Lewis or Camille Claudel or Enid Yandel? That's a shame. Chud goes, oh well, I mean, they're good, but they had to work under men to get noticed, so they don't really count. Not true. Besides, I mean, there's a reason there's no notable women from the Renaissance. He's obviously scrambling at this point for anything to prove his point or for me to say, I don't know, too, so he's right where I want him. You've never heard of Sophonisba Anguissolia, Lavinia Fontana, Artemisia Gentileschi? Oof, buddy, what a shame. Seems like you should brush up on your field a little more. And at this point, my then boyfriend, now husband, said one of the best things I've ever heard him say, which was, dude, you're not going to win against her. This is her stuff, man. I definitely wouldn't have been able to name drop as well had I not just written that paper, but I wasn't just going to let him know that. Best part is that his date and I ended up exchanging contact info, and she texted me the next day to let me know that she wasn't going to go on any more dates with him. Said that he had basically outed himself as a sexist after that and told her that her plan of going to med school was intimidating to him. I wonder why. Wait, who even does that on the first date? Like, why order something off the menu when his bum was served on a plate, am I right? Story 2. Skiing. Been racing since I was 4 and freestyling since I was 10. When I was 21, some kid, 12 to 14, by my guess, was bragging to a bunch of his friends about how good he was in the park while in the lift line. He was claiming he could perform Olympic gold level tricks and sequences, and I finally snapped a little. I told him, hey kid, if you can do one trick of your choice that you bragged about, I will pay you all the money I have in my wallet. I think I have $30 in there. What do you say? Kid replies, okay, sure, you're lost, loser. I go up the lift, wait for him and his friends. We head over to the park and ask him what he's going to do, off what jump. Kid claims he's going to do a full tail grab 360 off a 4-foot short ramp. Kid knows and I know that of all the tricks he claimed he could do, this one was the easiest. How many tries do you want, kid? I'll do it first time, no problem. Kid screws up the approach, the launch, the grab, and the rotation, getting only about 200 around. Lands pretty hard, but he's all right. His friends all go down after him and help him collect his stuff. When he's finally clear of the landing, I line up, hit the jump, get a perfect rotation going, get a perfect tail grab, and stick the landing smooth as silk. Kid and friends are just stunned. Next time, kid, just keep your mouth shut and keep practicing. Story 3. I've been wrapping my family's Christmas presents since a very young age. It's the perfect activity to focus my crippling perfectionism with my overall anxiety-riddled self to create a beautiful masterpiece that would make anyone think twice about discovering the mysteries beneath the colorful paper and bows. I've always just loved to do it, and my mom was more than happy to not spend hours wrapping presents. Flash forward to the company Christmas party in my late 20s. We are split into teams to compete for random prizes, and I'm up for the next game. I had no idea what I would be doing. I see a big cardboard box, a necktie, wrapping paper, scissors, tape, and a bow. I know what's about to go down, and I'm here for it. It's a blind present wrapping challenge. My competitors start talking about how they can wrap presents fast, and I sit there silently staring down that cardboard box, knowing fully that the crowd is in for a show. Blindfolds, neckties go on. We have a partner that isn't blindfolded that is supposed to give verbal directions. Just before the timer starts, I lean over to my partner and say quietly, "Are you ready for this?" And she just says, "What?" Bam, timer starts. Partner tries to give directions at first and quickly realizes I'm way ahead of her. And before anyone else can even get their paper cut, I've got my box wrapped, taped, and bowed. I even folded the ends and fancy to have the triangles meet. And that, my friends, is how I earned the most satisfying $10 Starbucks gift card of my life and earned the title of Rap Master. All right, so this was a good one. I'm pretty sure she wanted to be called Rap God, but M might diss her. Story 4. Let me set the stage for you. Dramatis personae. Me, the scrawny 12-year-old girl who had a competitive streak a mile wide and a hunger to prove herself to the world. My brother, the college student who wanted to have a good time with his roommates. The roommates, your standard group of college boys who were down for Mario Kart. And Paolo, one of the roommates who did not know what he'd signed up for. Brother and his roommates, Paolo included, came to our parents' house to play some video games. Being in possession of a theater room with a projector and surround sound, the experience was luxurious, especially for some college boys who love video games. Mario Kart Wii was the pick of the evening, and me being the loser with no friends, I watched them have fun for a bit. Now, some backstory. I'm the youngest sibling in my family with a 7-year gap between me and my brother. Yes, he is my closest sibling in age. He was not kind nor charitable. If we played a competitive game together, he would give no mercy. And many times I gnashed my teeth and wailed as he beat me at Smash Brothers and Mario Kart over and over. "If I allow you to win, it's not a true victory," he would tell me. Such behavior fueled my desire to get better and one day surpass him like a shonen hero finally surpassing his master. Regardless of age difference, one day I would win against him. And so I trained. Rainbow Road 150cc. I raced that course until I had every turn, every drift perfected. I could do it with my eyes closed. So after seeing brother and his friends goof off, I asked if I could play too. I could see their reluctance. A 12-year-old girl could hardly be a worthy opponent. But tact reigned and they handed me a controller. I selected my racer and my kart. "Which course?" brother asked. "Rainbow Road." Laughter filled the room. This girl was some sort of psycho, challenging grown men to the most difficult course in the game. "Okay, if you insist," Paolo said. We began the race. The first lap passed, and I was in the lead. Not even my brother with Funky Kong could surpass me. Riders slid off the road, shouts of dismay and alarm echoed in the room, and turtle shells flew everywhere. I kept my cool. I had mastered this course long ago. The second lap passed with the same result. When I crossed the finish line in first place, the roommates were quiet. Even brother looked impressed, and the joy of victory over my long-standing, one-sided rival filled me with an exuberant joy. But Paolo could not believe this outcome. It was clear he thought my victory was a fluke. "Again," he demanded. And so we did the race again, Rainbow Road 150cc. And again, I was triumphant, and this Paolo could not stand. I don't properly remember if we raced Rainbow Road again, but it was clear my victory had galled him greatly. I eventually surrendered my controller to someone else and left, proud of my win. While brother is still the reigning video game champion in our house, I shall forever remember the day I smoked 3 grown men at Mario Kart and established dominance as a small preteen. All right, so as soon as I read a competitive streak a mile wide and a hunger to prove herself to the world, I knew this one was going to be epic, and epic it was. And if you found that epic, you might as well leave a like and subscribe to the channel for even more. Story 5. Absolutely not an expert or even half-skilled by any measure, but back in 2006, my bud introduced me to his best friend. We met by the handball courts near his best friend's school, and he talked so much trash, saying things like, "What you got, fat boy?" and insults of that nature every single serve. Now, I never took handball seriously. Frankly, I'm just not a good player, and I was very overweight, which made running for the ball so frickin' exhausting. However, he wouldn't shut the hell up and just kept going on and on. Something in me got lit that day when he wouldn't shut up. My moves just became fluid. Every shot he took, I wouldn't miss a beat, calculated where it would go, and would rush my fat bum there to make it. Every smack of the ball made me feel exhilarated. I didn't even feel fatigue all game despite practically sprinting ball after ball after ball. Every second only made me faster. Every breath made my mental acuity sharper and concentration better for the sole purpose of handing his bum on a plate. I ended up crushing him to the point where there's nothing left for him to say. I still suck at handball, but that was my feel good moment when adrenaline met righteous anger and what happened was just pure glorious. Story 6. My wife always calls this the lamest flex, but it fits perfectly for this question. While in college, I worked at a warehouse for a furniture store and had to load furniture into people's cars and tie down their goods. 8 hours a day, every weekend for 5 years, I just loaded and tied stuff into people's cars and trucks, so I got pretty good with certain knots and loading cars without damaging them. A couple years later, I stopped working there. A friend of mine's fiance, nice guy but a bit of a nag, wanted to go buy a real Christmas tree but wanted to rent a truck to do it because his car didn't have a roof rack and he didn't want to scratch his car up. I told him as long as we have cardboard and some rope, I can take care of it, and he made this big stink about how he just knows this isn't going to work and that it's a bad idea. So we take my car, which also didn't have a roof rack, to pick up his tree. I wrap it up in corrugated cardboard and tie it down like none other. Tight as a drum, no scratches on the car, no problems, and I got free beer out of the deal. I know, not the most exciting challenge on here, but after taking crap from my friend's fiance that whole day prior to that, it felt great. Story 7. This is tangentially related, but it's one of my favorite stories to tell, so I'll do it anyway. At the time, a 22-year-old woman, was at a geek-themed club night for God knows what reason. I'm not a people person and I don't drink, but I was trying to get out more and make friends after a rough time in my life. I should also note I'm nursing a broken dominant hand wrist at this time from a rollerblading accident. I'm standing on the edge of the dance floor, wallflowering like a pro, and a guy comes over. We chat a bit, and he's very insistent about trying to buy me a drink. I refuse multiple times, but keep the conversation going since he claims to be in the same university program as a close friend of mine. At some point, a song comes on and he exclaims loudly that he loves it, and when I indicate confusion, he tells me it's a Mortal Kombat theme and says he figured me to be more cool than that or something. The details of this conversation are a bit fuzzy. I say, oh well, I played Street Fighter as a kid instead, but I'm also an Aikido practitioner. He aggressively disbelieves me and calls me a liar, so I tell him to let me show him. I very easily and casually use a basic submission throw technique with my offhand and fling him delicately to the floor. Aikido is designed to avoid injuring the opponent. He dusts himself off and promptly leaves. I don't know why I found it so satisfying to get to throw some creep, a clueless dude, but it sure was. Alright, so my question is, why was there no fatality? Oh, it's because the guy lost, right? Story 8. I'm not an expert, but I come from a family of cooks and I grew up in the kitchen. So, July 2014, I found myself living with my mother-in-law who doesn't know how to cook, but pretends she knows and no one can tell her different. Suddenly, her electric stove starts acting up. Everyone in the household started having issues with it. My mother-in-law was in complete denial because she said it was fine when she opened it up. We, my father-in-law, husband, bro, and sis-in-law all learned how to adjust to the stove's new quirks since it was obvious that she wasn't replacing it even when we offered to pitch in. Nothing was wrong with it. So one day, weeks later, I put dinner in the oven and it came out completely undercooked. We ended up having pizza for dinner that my husband and I paid for. Later, I overheard her tell my father-in-law that I don't know how to cook, and I saw red. This had been building up all summer at this point. I asked her to repeat herself. She said I didn't know how to cook. I went up to her face and said in a very low and stern voice that I wasn't cooking anymore. I walked away as I didn't want it to get ugly. I didn't cook the rest of the summer. My husband and I moved out finally shortly after that. Thanksgiving comes around. My father-in-law asked my husband if he bought the groceries, would I be okay to cook or host. My husband agreed as he couldn't say no due to the fact that everyone was busy or working on Thanksgiving. My father-in-law drops off a few bags of groceries the day before, including the turkey. Unbeknownst to anyone but my husband, I had a fridge full of other stuff. I had spent all week calling my parents and family for recipes. They knew nothing about the drama and thought I was just hosting a first Thanksgiving celebration in our new place. My family doesn't live in the country. Next day, my in laws showed up for Thanksgiving. They walked into a buffet. I had 2 tables worth of food with more in the kitchen. I also had made a simple chocolate ganache mousse top for my sister in law, as she didn't like dessert except for this, apparently. I heard her mention this all year when we lived with them. My in laws just stood there, staring at the food. I broke the silence by asking my husband to take out the turkey. I had been babying that turkey all morning and basting it every 20 minutes or so. I frickin' massaged that bird before it went in the oven with the best butter I could buy, along with the seasonings and the stuffing. When it came out, it was melt in your mouth tender perfection. I insisted on serving everyone with the help of my husband. The atmosphere was awkward in the room as no one was talking, really. Only my nephew was making noise as he played. Eventually, my father-in-law and brother-in-law started talking about hockey. My mother-in-law didn't say anything and was oddly subdued. Once we started eating, I watched her eat every bite and not enjoy any of it. Everyone else started eating furiously as I was going to take it all away. My brother-in-law and nephew were the only ones who praised my cooking. My nephew, who was 5-ish, maybe 4, and made it known to everyone that the food was so yummy, that it was good. And after dinner, I took the plates away to serve the dessert. When I served my sister-in-law the ganache, she looked confused and eyed it suspiciously. I realized she didn't even know what it was. I quickly clue in that she probably heard of this somewhere, and it made her sound sophisticated, so that's why she always said that. She assumed no one was ever going to make it and probably forgot what it even was. She never touched it. When it was time for everyone to leave, I packed up all the leftovers into bags to go. My father-in-law took the bags and said thanks a tad too heartily. I knew he wasn't going to say anything about my food, as he probably didn't want to anger my mother-in-law more, who just kinda left ahead of everyone. I cleaned up happily, knowing that even though I wasn't acknowledged, I know I outdid myself. When I talked to my family and described how great the food came out and what I had made, they were proud of me, and that was more than good enough for me. Dinner was a complete success. The next Thanksgiving comes around, and my mother-in-law is insistent that all holidays now take place at her house. Fine by me. She talked about how she put the bird in the oven that morning and how my sister-in-law made the mashed potatoes and I don't know what else. I just played dumb and nod. When we were seated, she took out the bird. It was raw. It had been in the oven 8 hours, according to her, and the bottom was raw, pale skin. Only the very top cooked brownish. She was humiliated. She got very red and looked like she was about to cry. She cut up the top in silence with an electronic carver and gave us each a piece. No one really ate it as much and pushed it around their plate. Later, I find out that my father and brother-in-law left to run an errand and actually got burgers for them to eat outside the house. My husband and I had sandwiches when we went home. The stove was replaced after that. This year, my brother-in-law has a GF of a few years now. So when my mother-in-law asked everyone to Thanksgiving dinner, we're in Canada, the girlfriend said she didn't want to eat there because the turkey was never cooked right by my mother-in-law. Yes, that's right. It's been like 3 times that the turkey had come out undercooked, overcooked, or something, and every time it's the same scenario. I have mastered the art of playing dumb now about anything. Oh, and I haven't cooked for them since. Oof, I can just imagine Gordon Ramsay screaming, "It's raw!" Story 9. Oh man, so years ago, I used to jog super casually as a way to burn off my anxiety. When I say casually, I mean that I never bought anything for it, just had normal chucks to run in. But I could go for as long as it took for my anxiety to burn out and I could hit that runner's high. I did this for years purely for my mental health. I started dating this guy that calls himself a runner. He got shoes fitted to him by lasers, runs marathons. We dated for a year and he never ran a single marathon. Talks about his sweet morning runs every day. I never mentioned that I jogged all the time because in my mind it was somehow inferior to his expert level of running. So one day he's giving me heat about smoking and tells me I need to start working out with him. I'm annoyed but agree, and I'm honestly kind of nervous because he's allegedly the best runner I'll ever meet. He begins a process of water loading, stretching, uses a stick of what I think was a wax for his thighs, gets on in an outfit he bought specifically for running, armband for his phone and headphones, the whole kit. I'm in my chucks, sweat shorts I had slept in, and a tank top. He's telling me to stretch because he's going to take me on his favorite path that's about 4 miles. This whole process of him getting himself ready took about an hour. We got out of his apartment and he's at a super slow pace, barely even speed walking, so I start smoking and plodding along with him, thinking we're just moving with haste to the path. I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for the inevitable embarrassment that this run is gonna leave me with. I can feel all this anxiety and I see the path we're taking, and then muscle memory took over. I figured I would just pace him until I couldn't anymore, then just die in the lake or whatever was going to happen. I'm just jogging like I always do, look at the trees, control my breathing, wait for the knot in my chest to loosen. I'm not trying to get anywhere, I'm just trying to be in the moment. For what I think is a minute or two, I forget I'm running with this guy, then look over and I can't even describe what I was seeing. He was falling over himself trying to keep up with me. I stopped to ask if he was okay, and he just collapsed in a heap in the grass on the side of the path. I thought he was going to have to get an ambulance. I sat next to him in the grass for half an hour while he soothed his pride and insisted that he didn't need an ambulance. I had the most satisfying cigarette on the long walk back to his place, and he never brought up running again. Alright, well, if you like these stories and you could relate to at least one of them, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. I'll catch you in that video, and thank you for hanging with me on this one.